Now, why mobile cloud services matter? Well, because it brings in together different services from different technologies. This device alone, whether it's the most exciting, the latest, the flagship product of any of these manufacturers, it is useless unless it's got a cloud service behind the scene, right? Which means that most of the data processing happens behind the scene and not in this device, right? Which means that everything is worked out in the cloud, somewhere in some service, some sitting around the UK in this case, right? Doing lots of data processing, and what this device does, it just brings in the front end piece of information to you, okay? So that's what the cloud is about. It's about trying to build up a service whereby everything, or at least most of the things, happen behind the scene in a very speedy process, which means that what you see here is a lot quicker and it's a lot more insightful, and there's a lot more stuff that you've been building up across different devices in omni-channel approach. An omni-channel approach is very much describes the fact that nowadays we're not just relying on these devices that are with us all the time, but we're relying on a mix of things, from a wearable like an Apple Watch or any of these watches out there, smart watches, to tablets, to PCs, desktops, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple platforms that we use to access the services. Now, for the businesses to be able to offer that to you, what they need to do, they need to make sure that those services are somehow connected. And really the only way to connect those services is by relying on the cloud. And when we talk about the cloud, we don't just mean that nice cloudy thing somewhere, right? Out there, but that's actually a server. It's a very powerful server, just like your computer, but very, very much more powerful, that actually is connected to the internet and works out and processes huge amounts of data before that data is served onto you in this little screen, or maybe on a laptop, or maybe on a desktop. So in other words, the whole idea is that, and the reason why businesses do that is because they want to make sure that we receive a better service, faster service, and ultimately we can pick up our search or shopping journey from anywhere we are. And the only way to promote and provide that experience to the user is by making it very seamless, whether you are on a tablet, on a desktop PC, or maybe on a smartphone. And that is something that mobile cloud services are taking huge attention from large companies in the world, from Apple to Google to eBay and the largest players out there. Because they know that if they're able to provide a fantastic seamless experience for their shoppers across omni-channels, that means that those customers will stick with them in the long run. Otherwise, they'll be switching from one service to another with a click of a mouse, right? So if you wonder why Apple did everything they could to do well with the App Store, you know why. Because that beautiful technology, first iPhone that came out, wouldn't really get that far unless it had something behind the scene to provide additional service through other applications to the end users. It doesn't matter how innovative it was, it doesn't matter how successful it was, if it didn't have a service behind the scene that provided something unique to the end users, it wouldn't go that far. You wonder why large companies like Amazon went for the smartphones and tablets and everything else. It's because they want to provide a better service, but then offer additional services through different devices, right? why Amazon sells its tablets and its sort of like these flagship sort of devices that they call very cheap but not very expensive, like iPads and so on, because they want to use these devices as vehicles to sell more stuff, right? So they really, and if you listen to some of the talks from Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, he'll say that the profit margin on their devices is very, very low, because that's not what they try to make money. They're trying to make most of their money selling services through those devices. However, a company like Apple increases their revenues by not just selling services through this device, but actually the profit margin on these devices is quite good too. So they're actually improving their revenues by having income streams from all over the place, not just from their services they sell. In fact, that brings huge amount, but that's not only it. They actually get very good profit margins on the actual devices that they built. Now, it's really hard to tell exactly how much was the percentage, because there are all sorts of stats going all over the place from different institutions, but again, we know for a fact that the profit margin is quite high. So again, going back to this, companies are providing these devices not just because they want to sell and make money, but they want to use these devices as vehicles to sell other things and other products and services. Okay? You wonder why companies like Amazon now invest hundreds of millions to develop new content in series and movies for the Amazon membership users, Prime users. Why do you think that's the case? Because they want you to stick to their service, right? And by sticking to their service, you probably end up using their service more often and purchasing things from them, okay? And exactly, that's what lots of other companies do as well. They try to get you to stick to their network and stay with them as long as possible. Again, that goes the same with any other services out there. And again, going back to this, the mobile cloud service is nowadays very much driven by three things in general: the mobile, these smart devices; the cloud, the super powerful computer sitting somewhere in a data center, very well securely protected, very well connected, with strategy to be backed up when something goes wrong and all of that; and social. There's lots of work that argues that social is driving these things. It's driving both interactions and also shopping online as well. Which means that now the mobile, the cloud, and the actual social side of things is actually triangle that's driving all these engagement online. Because nowadays, what happens is that you go on a mobile phone, you access your Facebook, you do something, and you take that conversation away from your phone, and you access it from desktop or tablets or any other place. You can pick up that conversation or that browsing or that shopping experience from anywhere you want. And again, just making that experience seamless. We couldn't do most of these things in the past, but we can do that now. And again, that's why we need to get an understanding that what you have in front of you, whether they're desktop PCs or smartphones, they are not standalone devices. These devices are connected to a super powerful network. And that connection alone makes these devices very, very exciting, but also very powerful. But they're not these devices themselves. So if we try and give a bit of a definition, on MCS is an infrastructure where both data storage and the data processing happen outside of the mobile phone, right? So again, nowadays when you access something, for instance your Dropbox files, they're actually processed behind the scene in the server, not in this phone, right? And in that server, if that service behind the scene wasn't good enough, it'd be useless, right? And again, it's the same with your photos, it's the same with your other files, whether you're using Google Drive or Windows thing or anything else. Of course, the next one is Google. A good examples of mobile cloud computing, for instance, our applications including Gmail, Google Maps, and some navigation apps as well. Which means that, again, you can pick up that journey wherever you left, but in addition to that, you are using that device in front of you as a receiver. That device receives information from super powerful network and super powerful computers out there that are actually delivering information to you. Now, why MCS is important? Well, in general, that's what the claim goes. They save just about 45% of battery on mobile devices. So if you don't get those tasks to be processed in this phone, you are ultimately saving some energy. On the other hand, it saves storage and space. So if you're accessing something via a mobile phone, but you're not saving that on your phone, that means that you can save storage on your phone. Again, quite an expensive part on the smartphones. And then efficiency processing tasks remotely, which means that you can do things remotely from wherever you are, and it just makes it very, very convenient, whether it's shopping or doing work together with the teams. Some of the key challenges, well, if you've got problems with your network, then you're struggling, then all of those very fancy, nice, exciting services in the cloud will be useless, because you're not going to be able to access those, which means that you're really not going to be able to use them. That's why what companies are doing nowadays, they are introducing features on smartphones, so then you can at least have access to some of those files offline as well, even when you're not connected, because it's almost impossible to have 100% coverage using 4G data or even Wi-Fi sometimes wherever you go. There are parts of the country that just do not offer coverage. And imagine if you're driving your car using your navigation, if that navigation app and that device didn't have an actual offline feature in them, you'd be stuck in the road because you have no idea where to go, because the actual navigation system won't give you the maps and the route you need to go to, because it has lost the contact with the network provider. However, we don't have that problem anymore, because what those navigation maps provide you, they download the routes to your phone. So whether you are connected to the network or not, they'll still give you the actual route where you go to. And whether you've got a connection or not, you're still going to receive and see the journey that you need to take to get to the destination that you want to. Now, so that's one of the challenges now with lots and lots of companies, but they work really hard to improve and provide that offline experience. So you can have examples like Spotify, Google Maps, and iPhone native apps as well, whereby they will work offline as well. As soon as you have enabled that, you will be able to do that. Of course, web services like Spotify will have to pay to be able to listen to your music offline. Okay, but for most others, some other services, including like navigation services from companies like Apple and Google, as long as you had a connection before you got into that journey and you loaded that journey into your phone, you should be able to have and receive routes for the journey you are trying to get. Quality of service, of course, is being affected by the challenge of being connected or not. So again, connection really matters the most, and that's why now we're talking about 5G as well. And it's going to take a bit of a time when that sort of upgrade in the network happens. But again, the whole idea is to try to provide a speedy internet connection, because if you can do that, you can deliver loads and loads of services to the audience that you've got. And again, improving the experience and then making that seamless for everyone. And again, of course, pricing has an effect on that, because sometimes some companies offer you an offline service for their application, but you just need to pay for it. And as I mentioned, Spotify is one of those. Now, proposed architecture, which is called IRNA, Intelligent Radio Network Access, just gives you an idea as to how the cloud system works behind the scene. And again, the whole idea is to have an effective model to deal with dynamic sort of like connections and availability access networks by plane, which is presented to this. But when you get the idea of how this process works, is again making sure that when you've got a very clever system. The system itself would identify the best route for the access to the information and the best route to get your information back to you, putting it simply in plain English, simply because different routes might be very busy for different target of customers that you might have. Now, several cloud services out there, just for you to get some ideas. We've got what we call PaaS, which is Platform as a Service. Some examples out there are API like Google App Engine as well. SaaS, which is Software as a Service. Again, there's so many services out there, but of course you have got web-based services like Google Maps, Gmail, Facebook, and more. And NAS, Network as a Service, which again you're using the whole network as a service in general. APIs are there. And application protocol interface are the opportunities where companies like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and so on are saying, we're going to let third-party developers use our network to build up services that can be installed on top of our network. In fact, if you start to see and identify some reasons why Facebook grew so fast, is because it allowed third-party developers to identify services that could be built for their own app, for their own network, and then users went and downloaded those games and those apps on top of their network, and that meant that it provided more services for the audience that Facebook had. Now, some of the popular services out there, of course, some of the most well-known ones are iCloud, Google Drive, Dropbox, and so on. And this is like an old video that I used to use quite a lot, which uses Siri for the iPhone, but just gives you some ideas to what we're talking about so far.
Make a change on the way to work, and it's waiting when you get there. Bookmark a page on this, and it's ready on that. Now, the things you do on your phone are everywhere you want them, automatically. iCloud.
Now, when you look at some of those services like that, you think, well, that's very simple, very straightforward, very convenient, but there is a lot that happens behind the scene for that service to be available to you. Now, I don't want you to get into too much details, but having an understanding of infrastructure and how these services are connected behind the scene is important. The next example is Google Docs. Again, Google Docs provide very, very useful cloud services on all sorts of things, from documents sharing, collaborative documents, to database systems and other bits as well, which you can use to develop and work together on different files. And again, whenever someone changes something, it reflects any other device, any other platform. And a very, very good example is the love letter using the cloud service from Google, which I think very well represents the power of a group collaboration. Okay, so I think if that doesn't give you an idea as to how powerful these cloud services are, I don't think what else can give you this opportunity that you're going through at the moment. Every single company nowadays is really relying on cloud services to develop projects and services together. And you will notice now that several companies out there don't actually require you to be in the office all the time. They let you work from home. And all that remote work that happens is because of the cloud services out there. The next popular one is Dropbox. Lots of you use it. But of course, it's one of those very, very popular services that was started back in 2007. And again, it was created by MIT graduates, Drew and Arash, back in 2007, as I said earlier. Dropbox is a web-based file hosting service using the cloud storage to enable users to store data and information and share files and folders with anyone else. In other words, this is probably the most popular one when it comes to file sharing and group collaboration as well. When we look at the advantages of cloud services out there, we start to see that several of those are out there, and as I said to you earlier, but some of them are sort of targeted to the end users, like customers and just private users. Sometimes some of those are directed to the business users. But in this case, both Dropbox and other services out there, they're really tailored to both business and private users. Now, what are some of the limitations? And we talked a little bit about them earlier. Of course, the Wi-Fi bandwidth, sometimes it's just not good enough, depending on the service you're using, but also depending on where your Wi-Fi router is. Sometimes that can have an impact on the service. Network coverage, and we talked about this earlier. Now, for any cloud service to work, you've got to have the device connected to the network, because that's really the only way to have access to servers that are sitting somewhere totally outside your existing location. And again, the only way to have access to those is to have a network coverage. Of course, the mobile browsers are also a challenge, because sometimes the browsers do not, well, in most cases, unless the service provides, those browsers will not allow you to serve something when you're offline, and ultimately you need to be connected to do that. And that's where the mobile applications win over the mobile versions of the website, because if you're using a mobile application, you can do, depending on the service, quite a lot, even if you're not connected to the internet. But on the actual mobile browser, you can't do anything unless that device is connected to the internet, which that becomes one of the key limitations. What are some of the opportunities out there? Well, just some of the stats for you to get some ideas. Just back from 2009 to 2014, the revenues in the Android platform for Google went from 25 million to 5.9 billion in 2014. That again includes all sorts of services that Google provides, from their Play Store to the advertising and everything else. On the other hand, in the iOS and the Apple mobile cloud use tripled in 2011, but they started to say now that the number kept growing and there's more and more users using their cloud services. Now, just quickly to summarize, MCS definitions is very much the idea of trying to understand what sits behind the scene on the network-related services for the mobile platforms and why they're important. We talked about some of those services, limitations, and also opportunities that MCS brings to both end users and to the businesses. And of course, ultimately, you need to get a really good understanding as to why these are important. And again, this is not going to be enough for you to get your sort of like knowledge going. You've got to make sure that you do additional reading to expand your knowledge on this. Because again, whatever project you are going to get involved in one way or another, it will be related to a cloud somewhere at some point. Whether it's a third-party cloud like Amazon Web Services or like Google or Apple or anything like that, you will end up using a cloud where you've saved everything else around your business and around your service that you're providing. Thank you very much indeed.